Das darf doch nicht wahr sein. Das ist ja voll. Das ist natürlich super geil. Amazing, 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 amazing. Und tschüss. All right, I guess you can hear me now. I was talking for 20 minutes and nobody's hearing me. Wow, that is amazingly terrible. That is really amazingly terrible. All right. Oh God, that is just embarrassing. I'm not sure if I can actually take the whole stream and upload it. All right, let's start it again. So you guys can hear me now. Hello, welcome to the chill stream. How many minutes am I in? 23 minutes and no sound. Yay me. Oh my God. Okay, so let's start this whole thing again. I was actually talking quite a lot about monetization and how you can become a bigger developer, how you can get into marketing your game better, and I completely blew that. All right, so let's start it again. So welcome everybody to the official start of my completely wrecked live stream for now. And yeah. So one thing, there was one question at the very beginning by Matthew. He already released his game on Steam, but he wants it to make it definitely more popular. So there's a question, how could you advertise your game to people so people actually know your game better? And therefore, I need to go lengthy again. Oh, this is so bad. Therefore, there's one way how it traditionally went. So basically, you had at the very beginning publishers. So for example, that was EA, because here this is a publisher. And normally how you had this, you had the development team. So basically, I don't know, BioWare or who else? For example, the guys who so for example, they did Doom and so on. And then of course they had their publishers, and these publishers kind of said like, sweet, we give you the money to produce the game, but we will market it, we will pitch it to some, in quotations, influencers, which were at the very, 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 very beginning magazines. So this is like 15, 20 years ago. That stuff was ultra relevant. So let's say you had Super Mario Bros. 2 coming out, and how you could actually make people hype for it, because you could just go to the TV, because everybody was still watching TV. And are you still hearing me? Just a quick question. Is it still working? Is it still working? Okay, I will see hopefully in a few seconds, because there's always some delay, I guess 30 seconds or 40 or something like this. So I've just have to wait for that. So coming back to that, you had the developer traditionally and the publisher, and the developer was just developing the game kind of in a vacuum, and they tried to make this game as good as possible. They tried to ship it complete. This is, for example, not a thing anymore. Sweet. Okay, they can hear me. And then the idea was like, sweet, you make your video game as a developer, make it good, make it well, first of all, protected, because there were tons of DRM, so basically like stuff which is preventing you from pirating it. It still happened, let's face it, today it's still the same. And then you made your game and you made it complete, so patches wouldn't be happening. So for example, if you made your Super Mario game, you couldn't just say like, hey, after you released it, yeah, let's do the day one 60 gigabyte patch. That wasn't happening, so the game needed to be all around, it needed to be finished, and it needed not to crash. A very important thing, which used to be. And then the publisher said like, okay, sweet, this is your game, we're gonna pitch it to some magazines. So for example, there was this, how was that called? The Nintendo magazine 90er. Okay, let's check out some pictures so you can have, so Total, Endzone, or Nintendo Club. I guess Nintendo Club was the biggest one, and then they pitched it to those things, and people like, oh sweet, Super Mario Bros. Is coming out, and 3 was very, very hyped through that. And then this was one method. For example, this was of course their own internal magazine, and then the publishers, for example, made these magazines themselves, and then they were just selling that to their stands. Basically, that was actually most of the time just advertisement for the games, and people bought basically paper with advertisement of games. Nowadays, it's a little bit different, but this was one way how to get your audience bigger. The other one was TV commercials, which was extremely expensive, but most people were watching that. So for example, you had like some time between, I guess, 7 in the morning to, I guess, 10 on Saturday, which was prime time for kids just watching. And then you just say like, hey, pitch it, this is the newest game from Nintendo, and they were just like paying like tons of money for a few seconds of like saying like, hey, the game is out. And then of course you had to go to the shop because there was no online stuff, and you bought the cartridge with your video game. So this is how it used to be. And of course there were some other publishers which had at the mid 2010, something like this in this regard, some websites. I don't know, it was GameStop, it was, I don't even remember. There are a few of them still around, but they are losing relevance also. So for example, the publisher just pitched like, hey, go to this website, make an article about my newest game, yada yada. They of course paid for that. So the reviews were, let's face it, a little bit very, and then boom, this is how they sold their games. Now let's fast forward to the modern times. Now we have 2 spheres, which is the AAA, and then we get batteries in AAA Industries. And this, for example, AAA, okay, didn't even know that this existed. Fail. Video game. That's actually interesting. I didn't even know that AAA. So here we go. We are on the right track. So Electronic Arts and so on. And now you have the AAA video game industry, which are EA, Activision, Blizzard, and so on. And these are like the biggest hitters. And of course, then you have Nintendo and Sony, which are doing their stuff. And now we come into the indie sphere, which is the second little small guy in the room, which wants to take a big part of the video gaming pie. And these guys don't have the resources, they don't have the money, they don't have the channels to their connections, their infrastructure, and so on. So those publishers, for example Bethesda and so on, they have established a lot of things. So they have their engines, they have their assets already in place, and therefore they're basically the big dogs, and they can show their muscles with, for example, nice teasers, nice trailers. So this is, for example, one way how to advertise a game. Have a teaser trailer of your game which is looking interesting. So there are some techniques how you can do this, and boom, they show their muscles because their games are just looking really, really beautiful. This is a thing which most indie video game developers cannot achieve because, let's face it, they have hundreds of people just working on games for 1 or 2 years. Nobody has, first of all, the time or the money to pay for that. So the regular average Joe like me and you, not working like this. So for example here, Horizon, yeah, beautiful game by the way, and gameplay also. So here we need to distinguish, so how is it possible that the indie sphere is actually thriving and is well? And of course, well in quotations, because let's face it, most video games which are being produced are not profitable, but you can. And here is one way, for example, how, of course, the big publishers also do this. So how can you actually do this so people can see your game, so you become more profitable, more marketable? Well, first of all, this is a very rare thing which YouTubers will really hate you for. You just spam emails to the biggest YouTubers and just say like, hey, this is my game, please play it. Make it extremely brief, give them a demonstration, a video that they can play. So basically just take everything away from them, because most of the time they don't have time to play your game. And most of the time they will just see your email and instantly delete it. So this is one thing. The second thing, if they're quite huge, this is a thing which I found to be really annoying, they just say, okay, I can play your game, pay me for that. And then you're like, what? And then of course they are demanding quite some hefty sums for that. So here, if you are very small, I guess this gets out. But for example, if you go to smaller YouTubers, or let's say middle-sized YouTubers, then you can just pitch that, and well, they can play your game. And then of course some people see like, oh cool, I like it, and then this is how you can gain some traction. Or you do it the other route, you do it like me. You, for example, let's get this rid here. You basically have your own channel like mine, and then you offer something which people actually want to see. So for example, my idea is I want to give you some tools, some things which you actually want to have, plus I want to try to sell my video games, but I kind of funnel it. And funneling just means that you offer something which is for free. So lots of tutorials on, for example, remaking Hotline Miami, or some stuff of shaders. So this is for a very niche audience, because, well, let's face it, Game Maker is kind of small. And second of all, this audience is mostly comprised of people who actually are new to the industry and want to make their mark on the industry, want to make some money, but they're not sure where to start, how to do things, and therefore I do those mostly tutorials. And these tutorials help you out, and then for example you're thinking, okay, I need this, and then sometimes you're like, oh sweet, I'd like to get more. And for example, this more from my side is, for example, my own game, my own, for example here, the character creation tool or whatever. So things which can give you a little small income stream, or which can sustain you. At the very beginning, don't have any illusions about this. This is not sustainable for the first 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and you will make tons of minus. So if you're thinking like, sweet, I'm just going full indie, bad idea, because most of the time you will not be profitable. So here, just be aware, this is a very, very tough market nowadays. So this is the second thing. So make your own YouTube channel, or for example, pitch it to other YouTubers. And of course, what you can also do is attract people to your own website or through other means. So therefore, there are different kind of channels. So for example, if you have a Twitch channel and you just play your game, or you play other games, then people recognize you, and then they don't buy your game because your game is good, even though maybe it is extremely perfect and it's sweet and everything is great about this. People will actually get your game or whatever you're offering because they have a connection with you, they like you, and therefore, boom, you can boost up your thing. So in a vacuum, just producing a video game and dumping it on Steam, completely forget it, because you can actually check it out, how many video games are what is it? Steam games total amount. Here we go. Hopefully this will give me let's see. So how many games were released? Yeah, go away. Worldwide from not so much. That's actually not a lot. I thought like I had a number of like 80,000 or even more games on Steam. So I'm not sure if this is actually accurate. Only 8,000 games? No, that can't be true. This is definitely not true. No. So here, I guess wrong numbers, because as far as I know, Steam has about 30 to 80 games a day being released on the platform. Just check out. This is just a huge number. So let's go and here we go. So let's just play this around. What kind of competition you're having? So let's go with an average number of 50 games per day, and times 3. I don't know. Go by 300, because why not? We don't have actually 300 days a year, but so roughly, just see the number. So this is your competition roughly. That's quite a lot. So here, and this is just every year, so roughly a number like this. So the competition is huge. So how can you stand out with your game? First of all, you need to have your audience, and second of all, it needs to be aesthetically pleasing, because I've seen a survey on video games, how well they are faring, and one of the most important things was, and that was like 80% or something, was graphics. So it doesn't mean that you need to have like an Unreal Engine graphics. It needs to be pleasing for the eye. So for example, pixel art is pleasing to the eye also, but if done, of course, correctly. So here, do no bright memory? What the hell is bright memory? I'm not sure what this is. So hopefully this answered your question a little bit. Ooh, let's go. Hi, no sound. Yeah, no sound. I suck, I know. Oh, change your mic settings. Finally it worked. Yeah, after 20 minutes, I know. I'm really sorry about this. I thought it was just working, because I cannot check if actually sound is working, because it goes through, what's your, how you call it, voice meter banana. So this is the program which I'm using, and then for example it's just showing like, hey, mic is working, but it wasn't. Yay. Yeah, no, so I guess I have to ask at the very beginning again that the mic needs to be working. So let's go to the comments. It works, yada. So it's working, moment, perfect line. Find, do no bright memory. What the hell is a bright memory? I'm actually not sure what that actually means. So let's go with the flow. Am I still screaming? Yes, I am. One thing which I liked, which I did here, Hotline Miami, and this was very, very interesting, because I was seeing some videos on Hotline Miami concerning the storyline and the loop, and the loop is very, very important in this game. This is the house. Start house, come on, start area. No, because this is very important in the context of how the game is actually working. Come on, show me a good picture. Okay. Start house. This one, no. Give me a few seconds to find what I'm looking for, because this is very important how the whole game is structured. And I actually didn't pay too much attention to it, but it is doing actually something which is really good. And this comes into territories, for example, of the Dark Souls also, because they do that in the same regard. Here we go, found it. So this is the apartment. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Sweet. So this is basically the apartment, and the interesting part about this one is, let's zoom a little bit. Here we go. So here you all the time start at this area with your protagonist, and this area all the time changes during your missions. So for example, at the beginning you are alone, then you go to this answering machine, then you get your quest in quotations, then you just go on your rampage, and then you have extra scene of some dialogue, and then you loop, and then you return back to your apartment, and then you get another quest log, then you go out, you go to the mission, go on the rampage once again, and then you go and have some dialogue exposition once again at a familiar place. I guess it was a pizza place, one was a bar, and so on, and then you return again. And as you can see, you build up first of all a familiarity, which is extremely great in this game. So this is a thing which you should copy, because you kind of have a connection to the game, because you are doing things which are in quotations same-ish, but, and here comes the but, for example, later on you rescue a girl, then this place looks a little bit more tidy, then a few of the things which are very, very detailed, so they're not forced. For example, there's no prompt saying like, hey, your room is now cleaned, hey, the chick you rescued is now in the bathtub or sitting at the couch. And for example, first of all, she starts being in the bathroom, then later on she is on your couch, and then later on she is kind of your girlfriend because she's moved to your second bed. And therefore this is called environmental storytelling, and this is super, super important to understand, because it's not forced down on you, but you can go through the details and see like, the actions which I did had some impact. This is super important to understand, because this is how you kind of build a storyline in a way which is very not dynamic, which is very natural. It is not forced, but you can see like, okay, my actions had some impact, because a lot of games don't really have that. They don't show this. They don't do environmental storytelling. You just go out, go through level 1, then level 3 and level 4. So for example, Super Mario, and then you leave no impact. The levels are all the time the same. There's no change. But this game does want you to be kind of invested in the structure of your house, in the storytelling, in what you're doing, and of course then you have some more exposition and so on. This is very important. So this is once again called environmental storytelling, and this is what Dark Souls does a lot too. And they even more obfuscate or make things a little bit more muddy concerning what you're actually getting, because most of the story is told through, well, the environment. So everything is kind of wrecked and everything is lying around the places. So if you go, come on, Dark Souls, there we go. Doesn't really matter, because all of them, besides the second one, did quite a decent job of storytelling. Environmental story. There we go. And for example, what is environmental storytelling? Let's pick actually one out. No, this is not good because I cannot see it correctly. So for example, if you played the first one and you enter an Anolondo, so this is one of the biggest city, which is a mystery, and later on this whole city is actually an illusion, but of course I don't want to spoil it too much, and therefore you just are greeted with this majestic picture of the city, which is really beautiful. So they did some really really beautiful art in this kind of regard. So this is your hero, and then you see this majestic city. Beautiful stuff, by the way. So this is one thing what they're doing, and of course the Dark Souls does it through the other way, to give you even more context through descriptions in items, which is very, very hidden. So if I played it the first time, I actually liked the combat, I like the way the game was set up, but I actually never thought that you can actually build a whole cohesive storyline through item descriptions. I just picked up, oh, it's a sword, it's a staff, and something. It didn't really matter to me, but some people actually saw this as a challenge, as a puzzle, and they picked all the pieces together, and boom, then they had a more or less cohesive story, because a lot of things are still very vague and muddy, on purpose, of course. They don't want to give everything away, which is great. So basically you can run your thoughts widely and freely and construct your own stories within the context of the game. This is what a lot of video games don't do, which is of course a bummer. All right, still working, yes, perfectly fine. Katana Zero is one of those. Katana Zero is a double 1A or double A game, because it was developed with the publisher in this something. Here we go. Katana Zero publisher. I guess, yeah, Devolver Digital, and they, for example, did also, as far as I know, Hotline. So they work in conjunction. Of course, they have a little bit more money now, but of course, Katana Zero was actually made in Game Maker Studio. So if you want to create a similar clone of that game, it is possible in that engine, just so you know. So because of the colors, of how well it is being done, and Katana Zero is, yeah, this game is awesome. This game is really awesome. I like how the art is being done. The gameplay is kind of fast. So this is how, if you've never seen it, this is Katana Zero. So basically you are this samurai ninja dude, and then you can get one-shotted, and then of course you have some kind of a bullet time where you go through. And as you can see, the colors are really beautiful. There's tons of light systems in there to make it appear a little bit more. And of course there's the bloom shader out there, which is one of my favorites. And it does look a triple A, but of course these games have not the same resources. They can try to emulate triple A, but triple A can, for example, I don't know, if you play a game of, not EA, Activision, so let's say you play an Assassin's Creed, and they have like 180 million side quests. This is not feasible if you are a small developer. So for that you need a team, and even a big team and long development time. Katana Zero, I guess, just made by a few guys, but they did quite a decent job, and I actually liked how they made the storyline also. But of course the art and so on, beautiful. So this is, for example, even though you're thinking like graphically it must be pleasing, this is graphically pleasing, even though it is pixel art. Pixel art has one huge advantage over the 3D art, because it is a thing where you can interpret your own stuff in there. So for example, if you have a 3D game, a lot of things are not up for interpretation, because these are just pixels, because you see kind of a shape. Then you see, okay, this is, I guess, supposed to be the hair. This one pixel is the eyes, and this is the face, and this is the body. But this is a construction of your imagination, of your brain, which is trying to put in things, patterns together, and then they form a cohesive picture. This is how your brain actually works. And then if you have 3D, then it kind of looks a little bit off, and then you have less interpretation. And then you see something like, I don't like it. Yeah, thanks, mate. Thank you for all the work you've done and tutorials provided through the years. I appreciate it. Yeah, you are welcome. Are there any questions for the guys who are still watching? Latence isn't always good as it seems. 7 people watching. Let's see. No sound. What's the time? Oh, 20 minutes of real streaming already done. And what else can I say? Okay, so if you got no questions, I can actually go through some other stuff. For example, if you are a video game developer and you actually want to actually start to be one, then you're thinking, okay, where should I start? So the first question for you should be how comfortable you are with producing a video game, because a video game consists not just of programming, which I do most of the time. Video games have different kind of parts. So on the one side, you as a video game developer, you have, for example, the art guy, and he doesn't need to have any kind of skills in regard of programming. He doesn't actually need to have any. So they are creating, for example, some splash screens. They are drawing some levels out, and then, for example, they're being rebuilt by the programmer. Or if you have a level designer, this is then a subsection of the developer, the programmer. Therefore, you have different kind of parts. But let's dive this down, because this is what I do actually in my course. So you have roughly saying like the programmer, which is doing the whole engine thing, putting things together so you can actually play something. Then you have the graphics guy, which is doing here the art. So for example, here pixel animations, so the sprite sheets and so on, or drawing the backgrounds and so on. And then you have, of course, the game developer, which doesn't need to actually do any programming. He or she can, but doesn't have to. And then they're just designing how the game is supposed to be played. So let's say the game designer, which is a little bit more not well defined, is trying to make the game fun. And this is the interesting part. So he or she needs to design the game so people actually play it as long as possible. Then they have kind of, let's say, a skill system in there, or for example, some helper systems and stuff which is relevant. So for example, you as the game designer, for example, say like, hey, how fast the bullet should be flying, how the recoil is, knockbacks, for example, for a game like this, how fast you are moving, where things should be placed, what kind of loot you are getting. If you are, for example, having an experience system, how much experience you're getting for one kill or for one battle or whatever you want to have. And therefore, the game designer isn't directly into the programming part. He just said like, okay, I have a rough idea of the game, and I want you, the programmer, to execute on these orders or on these suggestions. And of course, to the graphics guy saying like, hey, dude, I need this and this and this, so the game will be fun. And of course, then on the outside, you could have the publisher, or you can have this inside. If you're an indie developer, then one guy which is responsible for the marketing, or for example, for the community. So you could be a community manager, but this is for rather bigger teams, which have a little bit more substantial money to play with around. And of course, the marketing manager or social manager, whatever, he's just doing the budgeting. He's trying to make other income streams and trying to collect money through Patreon, through Kickstarter, through some other means where you can collect money. Or for example, just saying like, hey, okay, release what is it, an early access, and then hey, we can have a revenue stream in this kind of regard. So here there are different kind of ways how you can be part of the process of making a video game. And I guess this is kind of important to see. So you don't necessarily need to be fully developed in, let's say, my stuff, which is just basically, and most of the time, just programming. Of course, programming is one thing which is ultra difficult, and I understand this. So for a beginner, and if you're seeing like this stuff, like what, how can you make 300 videos? Yeah, this is programming. Programming has you need to understand a lot of things, but this is in the end just a skill. And for example, if you're good, better with graphics, so drawing stuff, then go into the graphics stuff, because this is a skill also. For example, my pixel art is suboptimal, and therefore I've partnered up with my graphics guy. And as you can see, then you form teams, and these teams together are more successful if you just say like, no, I'm gonna make the best game alone. So here one thing which I would advise you guys to do: form small teams which have their specialties, and then you can put things which are separately together. Of course, don't block yourself. So this is one of the bad things you can do. Just say like, I'm programming and the other one is also programming, and then you are kind of competing, which is not what you should be doing. But if you, for example, have a programming team, then for example, one is doing the environment, so how the engine is working and light and so on, and the other one is, for example, programming some UI, so GUI or whatever, and then of course you can put your stuff together because these things are separate. So yeah, let's see if there are other. How can you learn pixel art? Well, there are pretty good channels how you can learn pixel art. There was YouTube. Here you go, YouTube, Pixel Pete. For example, Pixel Pete is a Pixel Pete. He's actually having a pretty decent channel in this kind of regard. And he is showing off most of the time how you can, for example, draw some stuff. And of course, he is a semi-developer, so he is doing his own game now also, which is Dwarf. Pretty looking cool. So, and of course, he's showing you how to make some pixel art, and he's just well, drawing that stuff. And if you want to learn pixel art, this is a very, very, very difficult skill to learn. So this is not like, this is the easiest stuff. I must say pixel art is very difficult because you need to understand where shadows are. Because in the end, your brain needs to interpret how pixel art is working. So let's go, let's give it a little bit pixel art, here we go. So let's say, for example, you can do terrible pixel art. So this is, for example, not so good pixel art. And this is beautiful pixel art. Because pixel art is kind of artificial way of creating something which you put in back together in your mind as a cohesive structure. Because let's say these are just random dots, but they form Goku. And you recognize it as Goku. Or for example, this stuff, you recognize it as ice cream with eyes, which is kind of creepy. So therefore, you need to understand, hey, where shadows. So for example, here, this line is a little bit darker. It shows you, okay, this is a cone, and this is then going downwards. Of course, here, this is pixel art made. This is looking really good. So as you can see, there are different kind of ways how you can, this is the, I guess the technical terms, to shade. So you have spots which are where the light should be, and therefore you have a very light color, then a less light color, and then of course here the tone, and then here these areas are the shadows. And here to make this really good, the bigger the thing is, the more complex. And as you can see here, this is pixel art imperfection. So there are different kind of styles in pixel art. Some are really detailed, like this one. This is tons of work. So if you would need to animate this thing, this will take you hours. Or itch.io. Let's go in here. But of course you can do pixel art, which is bot the tester. Oh, this is my other account. Nice. So of course you can go retro art, which is definitely easier to put off, but most people don't like it. At some point, pixel art isn't looking good. For example, stylistically, it is the easiest one to do, but most people will be like, will be put off. And of course, you can go into extremes. So for example, Ansimus is doing like some really, here we go, Luis Mesos. So this is Ansimus. He's doing some really detailed stuff. And as you can see, wow, here, pretty cool stuff. But of course, you need to understand this dude is doing this for a living and selling stuff. And one little warning, pixel art is very difficult to produce, and you have tons of competition. So let's see how many things which are out there. So 17,000 results. This storefront is getting flooded with stuff. Or you can go the middle route, which could be, let's see, which is the middle one. This is like really nice looking 16-bit style. Okay, let's go to then. Or for example, you can go this kind of pixel art. So as you can see, there are different kind of styles you can emulate with shading, no shading. You can try to make it a little bit more plastic. Sometimes it simply depends where you want to go, and therefore there are tons of video tutorials which you can just check out in YouTube, and then they will say like, hey, this is how you could. There was one really good one which was doing pixel art. Let's see, pixel art 2. Here we go. Not sure which one was it. He's doing like some really sweet art. Yeah, Mord. This one is really good also. Here you can learn tons of things. And nah, not you. There was one from, I guess he's from Brazil also, and I already discussed this in another video. I will give you the link later on in my community tab. So basically later on I will just give you here a little insight. I forgot where it was, and he is doing for free on his Patreon, so you can basically download that stuff for free. Instructions how to do pixel art, and pixel art instructions. Maybe we can find something, because he's actually doing this. Yes, this is the guy. So yeah, this is the guy, and he's doing it. Pixel art, Pedro Madeiros. He is doing like some really cool stuff, because these things are GIFs and then they are animating, and then you see like how you can actually make some pixel art. So one of the best things, if you want to learn pixel art, is go to Pedro Madeiros, and I guess from Brazil. I'm not sure about this, but I guess so. And he is having tons of these things. I downloaded tons of these things also, and then boom, he's just having giving you lots of ideas how to create pixel art. So for example, how you can create this cool trees from Zelda, for the Zelda, or for the jumping animation, for some animations in, for example, how you can shade things. What else do we have? Or for example, kind of this blink animation, which is kind of interesting also to do. I would rather do that in-game, in the engine. So here you need to understand there are ways how you can actually avoid these kind of things without doing the pixel art. So video games, for example, try to do a few things. So just give it a scenario. Let's say you're having, 15 or 16 of those gems, and all of them need to be animated like this, which is taking tons of time. Or for example, you want to create an outline. So you would create this thing 15 times with an outline, or let's say one without. So for example, if you're hovering over it. But you can actually have this thing just 15 times as a sprite, and use a shader and just draw an outline. So here you're saving basically half of the work. So therefore you need to understand what is a good idea, a good practice in pixel art, and what is a terrible practice in pixel art, because you are doing tons of work. And I guess I made a video about this too. So therefore you need to see the balance between, first of all, creating art, and then not creating everything by itself, because then you are running into like 500 bazillion sprites which you need to do, and then you'll be working for the next 15 years on this project. So just be aware of those things. So let's say, actually we can do this, cave blazers. Here we go, cave blazers. That's actually a good example. Knowing the character, which is for example this dude. Oh, come on, let's give it a nicer picture. So for example, the character you're playing can be customized, and this is what they did. They basically separated it in different kind of parts, and they recolor the parts with a shader. So this is kind of similar to my tool, which I am doing here. So this is basically the same as my pixel character creation tool. So this is very, very similar. And of course, by the way, this engine was made in GameMaker also. And then they are recoloring those colors, and then they have just a few commands, and then boom, they didn't need to have the like say 500 different variations of the same guy, because he's maybe having a hat, he's maybe having a helmet, he's maybe having different kind of hairstyle and so on. And therefore you just hot swap those sprites. So for, let's say for example you have one area just for the head, just one area for the body, and maybe one area for the legs or whatever, and then boom, you have saved yourself tons of time, which is very, very important, because here you will get into some difficulties, and therefore you need to work with the graphics guy on the one side and with the guy from the engine, which just say like, hey, let's cut a lot of stuff out and let's make this easier, and we get the same result. So this, I guess, was on pixel art. Of course, from my side, I am not a pixel artist. I am rather limited. And of course, what I can do, and I'm pretty good at that, I'm a copycat. I can get some stuff and remix it so it's looking more or less good. And then, of course, I can make it, how can you call that? Make it my own. But of course, here once again, I'm just, let's say, medium to beginner in pixel art. Even though I love it, I am definitely more on the programming side. And therefore, I invested more time in programming than in pixel art. For example, if I did it the other way around, I guess I would be now something like an artist. All right, I guess that is it. How many people are watching? 6 people. Yeah, I had more people at the beginning. I kind of kicked you all out because fail me without sound. So yeah. Well, what can I do? This is, I guess, the way it goes. So I don't know, are there any other questions from your side? I guess I'm now 1 hour 10 minutes in. Not sure what I should be talking about. For example, we could go through the Opera browser. So the Opera GX, this is the thing. You can basically just go onto Opera and then just say Opera GX. Here we go. And download this thing, and then you have kind of a similar kind of a browser, but just for video games. And the great thing, I guess this is the one thing which I find very, very interesting. So it says like, hey, games for free. So for example, you can go that and grab Dandara on the Epic Store, or you can actually grab on IGDB. Never heard of this. PS Plus. So as you can see, there are games for free now. You can just grab them depending on what kind of platform you are, and it's just giving you some stuff, and you can actually filter that out. So this is pretty cool. So if you are a little bit lazy like me, you can filter out free games, which is always good. Free games always nice. And of course, you can do some different kind of filters, what kind of games are coming out. So this kind of organizes your portfolio of games which you maybe want to see. So this is pretty sweet, and you can have some control, which I didn't do. So how much RAM you're using and so on. And you can limit a few things. Limiter, CPU limiter, 21, 25, not sure what that is. Then things will maybe run smoother. Or for example, you can just have that in the background. One thing which I guess this will be advanced too, besides just being a calendar, just showing you newest game, is that games will be running in here. This is, I guess, what they wanted to do with the Game Maker purchase. That, for example, you are producing a game in Game Maker, and it will run really smoothly because it has been optimized for this engine. And then at some point they maybe try to be kind of a competitor to, let's say, Epic Store or the other ones, or just have it as niche. Not sure, because they kept it a little bit vague. But hey, we will see in the future. But I guess the future will be still bright for Game Maker. And one thing which they could do, and this would be amazing, so Game Maker, here we go, not Sandbox, just Game Maker Studio 2. If you go on their original site, Game Maker Yodo, I guess this is where I will close that stuff. is their price range, which is a terrible idea. So first of all, this is how the normal programs used to do this. So you have a free trial for 30 days and you can use the create thing, which is great. I guess you can fully make your game, but then you have to pay a license. Developer, for example, this is what I did. I just said like, hey, sweet, I got it for, I guess, yeah, for $100, the license. Then I have it as a permanent license forever. Then with upcoming updates, well, I can use them also. So this was pretty cool. But of course, for beginners, just shelling out $100 where you just go to Godot or Unity, and that stuff is free. This is, of course, a hard sell. And hopefully they will make this a free one, and then, I don't know, cap it for people who get this for free. For example, say like, hey, you can make your game, but for example, once you have more than 100,000 units sold, or you made more than $100,000 with that engine, then they want a cut from you. I don't like this. To be very, very honest, I don't like this. I like to pay upfront once a price, and then boom, you leave me alone, and then, for example, all the profits in quotations go to me. Because let's face it, this is what Unity is doing, this is what the Unreal Engine is basically doing. After some time, they cap it, and for example, if you sell it to Steam, Steam's taking 30% off, then the Unity is taking a percent off, then the Unreal Engine is taking a percent off, but Game Maker Studio is not. Not sure about Godot, so I cannot tell you anything about this. So actually, I like this because, let's face it, you want to have a good program at some point, and this is just my opinion, you need to pay for it. Of course, the other things are pretty obscene, so come on, $800 for PlayStation or Xbox. I understand that this stuff is just meant for, let's say, bigger developers, which can have, wow, okay, for $800 for 12 months, which can actually afford that. But this is for studios which already have that money upfront, and then I guess the costs are not that high. But of course, for small developers, still too expensive in contrast to the other ones. All right. Genome weapon, non-zero pistol. Are you copy pasting code inside the chat? Not a good idea, I would say. It's good for weapons using enums. Yeah, you can use enums, are pretty standard. Just buy it on Steam. It's permanent there. Yeah, this is, for example, this is what I did. So basically that was what I did, not directly through here. I got it through the Steam discount. It was on, what was that, before Christmas, and then they gave me a discount. I guess I got it for $70, 69, something like this. So I got it cheaper. And of course I can export to Steam, which is the most important platform to export. Of course, if you are a bigger one, so last 2 years, the best one which was working is the Switch. So if you have been developing for the Switch and you got in the last 2 years a game, then you could be relatively successful. Of course, for the other ones, well, nah. Wait on Steam. I switched to Godot in August and having a blast. All right, so if you say like, hey, Godot is your thing,